And that was the jetpack entrance.
Hi, everybody. Today I'm on a hiatus from my hiatus of podcasting to bring you another episode that just couldn't wait. Today, my guest is Jared Farney, a composer and drummer from Canada like myself that I happened to go to school with about a decade ago. Jared and I talk about his new album, Relics, a video game concept album featuring the visual art of Stuart Wade. This is Jared's second collaboration with Wade that features artwork paired to each track of the album and traces out story beats that one might find in the story arc of a classic adventure video game. We also talk about sound design and doing video game jams and all sorts of stuff. So here we go, okay? How you doing, man?
Doing good.
Yeah.
Just living the dream.
You're now in Austin, Texas, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Well, first off, my guest today is Mr. Jared Farney. Someone I am. Well, we're going straight into it. I haven't talked to him at all yet in what?
15-ish years, maybe? Something like that?
Yeah, I think 12-ish years.
I was rounding up.
We both graduated in 2010, I think, didn't we? From
Somewhere in there, yeah.
What have you been doing since then?
Well, I moved away from ye old motherland into Texas. Got the master's in drum set performance in the jazz studies area of University of North Texas. And then just moved to Austin. And
nice.
I've kind of set some roots here since about 2014.
Denton is... How far is that from Austin?
It's a few hours away. Yeah,
Okay.
Denton's like right by Dallas.
Okay. I was just going through Dallas. Just come back from New York. We were visiting, doing some family stuff.
Nice.
That doesn't mean anything. It's an airport. That could be anywhere.
Just going through.
You know the airport there? So, yeah, for everyone listening, I'm interviewing Mr. Jared Farney, who is a percussionist and a composer. He has a new album out called Relics, which we'll get into and talk about where people can find that and your process of writing that stuff. From just our own background, I guess, you came as part of the... Halfway through my bachelor's degree, there was a deluge of students coming from the other side of the country. And I keep forgetting... It's like... there's so many mix in my life. There's like McCarran Airport and like McQuaid and like all the... What was the name of the school? I can't remember.
We went to Grant McEwen.
Grant McEwen. God.
You got,
Okay,
you got
and
it
I
in
knew
the,
there was a two-parter. Yeah.
you had the Mick.
In Edmonton, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, when I went there, it was a 2-year diploma program in kind of more of like a general music.
Yeah.
I definitely went in there as like someone who'd played a lot of like rock music and like drumline, drum corps stuff, and was like, I've got this. And then on like day one, they made us play like a simple jazz standard. I think it was Freddie Freeloader.
Yeah.
And just totally ate it horribly. And I was like, okay, maybe I don't have this.
Yeah, and you were part of, like, so the 2-year degree, and then like you were able to transfer over to St. FX in Nova Scotia in Antigonish.
Yeah.
Where you joined us for our 3rd and 4th year. So it was pretty cool. Like, you guys all came, it was like Mel, Otto, Kate, and just like all these just sort of, it was like a weird like alternate universe group of people that like are
we all just
like
kind of
fit right in right away, and like, but like everybody was kind of like, okay, we need to kind of step up our game a little bit. Cause,
we
you
had
guys
a
are all
similar
fantastic.
process on the outside too, going like kind of a full group going there, and then a lot of the professors at St. FX were also like UNT alumni, And so there was some of us that kind of just shifted that way as well. And we just kind of had this like rolling group of jazzers.
Yeah, man, it was really cool. And look, that's cool. That like is that kind of why you ended up going to North Texas, because of the ties that we have, like Jake and Paul and.
That was a big reason. The other reason I auditioned at a few other schools, like University of Miami and USC in Southern California, and Rutgers in New Jersey. And all great schools, all super fun audition processes. But the tuition was just a little bit on the steep side, versus University of North Texas, where if you get like one tiny, like even like I think it was $100 scholarship, they would give you the in-state tuition, and that was like a quarter the price of the other schools, and that kind of helped.
Key.
That kind of helped, because I was like, right now I'm focusing on jazz drumming, which is probably not going to be the big ticket get rich quick scheme kind of thing. And so I was like, I don't want to be in full debt forever.
Yeah. No, and it's hard coming from like Canadian schools. We can be a little more comfortable up there. Mm-hmm. Just astronomical down here. But yeah, that in-state tuition that helped a lot.
Made a huge difference for sure. And the drum teacher there at the time was Ed Soph, who was like an amazing, legendary educator, who I was, excited to study with. So that really obviously helped sway the decision. And then I had a couple of friends that also went there from St. FX, so it made a nice decision. I definitely didn't see myself moving to Texas as like a cold little Canadian boy, but it's been great. Austin's a great city.
Yeah. No, I've heard that a lot. I haven't actually been there. I need to go there.
Yeah, for sure.
So you sort of started getting into probably, I mean, a little bit around the same time that I did, looking into like video game music stuff, because just from following your social media and stuff. What got you into like looking at video games and writing for video games? And well, and actually, because I don't know you as a composer, really, I know you as just a fantastic drummer, but I guess how'd you get into composing, and then why video games?
Yeah, I've kind of always been a writer at the same time as drumming. Back when I was in like middle school and high school, I was kind of writing like drumline pieces and cadences and things like that. And then when I got into high school, I kind of, we had one computer in our music room that had a copy of, I think it was like Finale 2000 or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I got to play on that a lot of times. And so I kind of had been writing, but, music was more the focus, like performing. And then I, throughout all of college, I kind of also wrote for the combos that I was in. And I just kept I was trying to write like, modern jazz music basically. And, the thing that people would always say every time I would bring in a piece, they'd be like, this sounds like a video game song. And it'd be like really triumphant and like heroic or something. And I'd be I'd like, let's play this little jazzy number. And it's like, dum da da dum da da da, like. Yeah. I was like, you guys get it? So definitely just, years of playing video games as a kid kind of helped make that my just musical basement. Yeah. And so everything I wrote kind of would be very gamified. And then once I got out of university and moved to Austin, it kind of, became a different situation where I wasn't surrounded by the performance side on the daily basis, and I started getting more into the production side. And so the things that I was writing, I could use like the tools that I had, which was more synthesis and things like that. And, started thinking about the potential for that to even be a career. It's one of those things that looking back, it kind of is more obvious, where it's like, of course I should just have been writing music for games. But at the time, just like I didn't really know music was a potential career option as a kid. And then getting into music, I'm like, all right, performing's the only way to go.
Right.
And then you
well,
start
that's the
to
only
see
thing.
these branching.
That's what the focus of the degree is. So it's like, why would you think any different, right?
Yeah.
So
So you kind of open. It's like the Matrix opens up, and you see all these branching directions, and you're like, I could make something that's like my complete interests, and make that it's a reality. And so
it's like find
kind
your
of
set of intersections where it's like the things you like and the things you're good at.
Yeah, that's definitely the dream I've been chasing. And I think a lot of the stuff I write is kind of a reflection of that, where it's like usually fairly rhythmically heavy and dense, but also kind of has like, sometimes some retro game influences and some more modern cinematic-y kind of influences.
Well, and that's a perfect segue into talking about this new one, because I listened to it and I took some notes on it, and I guess like just where did you land on just how did you start? Like obviously you the Stuart Wade guy, you're the artist guy who did the all the artwork for the not just the cover, but like you have like artwork for each track. And what is it? Go to jaredfarneymusic.com to see all this stuff. Click on the Relics tab. But yeah, it's how did you conceive of? Did he make the art first and then you wrote the music to it, or was it like a combination of like simultaneous kind of thing? Or
well, Stuart's been a friend of mine for a while now. I met him a few years back through like a project that my wife runs, which is called the Monster Project. Okay. And it's a project that she's like kind of run every year where kids draw monsters, and then professional artists from around the world take those monsters and reimagine them.
I was looking at that yesterday, or like 2 days ago. I was showing my niece that. I was like, look at this. That's your wife runs that.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I
didn't know that. That's so cool.
It's a super cool project that, like, she gets different artists from all over the world to kind of reimagine it in their style and kind of show kids the power of their creativity. And we always, I'm not usually the part that I have in it is like I'll go with her and help her run things, like make sure that the kids are drawing art and stuff. Right. She does all the heavy lifting, of course. In finding all the artists. But one of the artists that she found was Stuart Wade, and he's done the project for a few years now. He even designed the cover of one of the art books, the Monster Project art books. And then he just happened to, him and his wife moved to Austin for a little bit a few years back. And so I got to actually hang out with them and go out for, drinks and all that kind of stuff. And when we were out, we were talking about potential collaborations. And we kind of, both share a nice nostalgic fondness on retro game stuff. And so our first collaboration was the Ancient Tree Saga, and that was a one where he designed like a really cool full video game map. And I did
which
music,
I'm looking at right now.
I did music for each of the locations on the map, and we kind of separated it out.
So good.
And then, so that was kind of the first collaboration. And we kind of, going back to the actual question, I've kind of gone on a tangent.
It's fine. We're all about tangents here.
We kind of...
I forgot to set my timer, actually. I should have a timer, but it's fine. We started around 10, so it's good.
I thought you were talking about like a tangent timer. Like,
yeah.
Like
well, no, I mean just being in total. Yeah, tangent timer.
Yeah.
And you get goo like poured on you if you go over 5 minutes.
Yeah, so for that first project, I had a lot of tracks. I kind of guess for both of them, I had a lot of the starts of music. Ooh, we got a cat.
Sorry.
A lot of the starts of music kind of going, and like song sketches and all that kind of stuff. Not anywhere near like the full versions, but enough that you could kind of get the vibe. And so we kind of started with that to kind of influence where the art would go. And then when he would send back some art, it would influence where the music would kind of go. And so it kind of would morph nicely that way. That's
what I was hoping your answer would be, too.
Yes.
It's like, I wonder if that's...
There's a very, very iterative between the two of us. Which is really cool. And that's kind of how it worked for the Relics as well, as kind of... I started with some song ideas, All like MIDI done, no live instruments or anything like that yet. And then just kind of, showed him what I was thinking. And then we kind of came up with like an overall story arc for how this one would go. This one's a little bit different because the art for this is basically just, the ruins of like an old civilization that looks like it's been, long lost to time, and there's little relics scattered. And so we kind of tell the story of this civilization through the music and those relics and all of that. And of course, I always make things much more dramatic than they need to be. So it's like there's a giant epic battle and whole civilization's wiped out, and
you're telling a story.
Nature regrowth.
So.
Yeah,
you got it.
But yeah, so we kind of came up with these ideas to kind of create video game concept albums. By just having kind of art and music, and have each track gets its own art, which can either be like just like a different part of the map on the original piece, and then the full thing is the full map. And then with Relics, it was kind of different camera angles and lighting of different parts of the ruins. He sculpted all of that with VR, which is really cool.
Yeah, I think I have the program because I went and I checked out his website too. He was talking about it's like Sketch VR, Sketch something, V Sketch. I don't know what it's called, but it's like an Oculus thing, right? Where you can basically like make shapes and draw things in a 3D
I'm blanking
space.
on the name. I think it was like a Gravity Sketch or something like that.
Gravity Sketch. That's right. Yeah. That's right.
He did a lot of other things too. Like he had like some background textures were like created by like AI, and then he would like mess with them and kind of do things like that. And then of course he would bring it into other things and clean it up and render it all out. And he does a lot of really insane work. And
it's
always a
cool
super fun, playful style.
And it's like I'm looking at like so the first one you have the artwork next to the first track. It's like an overhead of like the whole thing, right? Is that kind of what it is?
Let me just see. I know what you're talking about. I just want to make sure I'm on the right.
Because like for our just people listening, like you can go to the website while you're listening or something. But it's like it looks like, so he's basically created a 3D environment, and for each of these like shots, and correct me if I'm wrong, he's zoomed into a certain part of that map.
Yeah,
maybe other ones are like independent, but
I think a lot of so that first one, the one that kind of goes along with the track Another World, has the full world scope. From up above you can see all the little details and all the cool stuff with the runes in the center. The ruins. I think I pronounce it runes sometime. Been playing too much Elden Ring.
A friend of mine who's very deep into Elden Ring right now.
It is great. But a lot of it was different camera angles and lighting, and then he would kind of go in and treat them all. But we definitely had lots of little meetings of just kind of trying to find the right characteristics for the music, and sometimes we'd kind of be like, this maybe needs to switch here, and to fit the mood, to try to build this narrative arc. We ideally would want the narrative arc to be able to be seen just through music and art without any words. That would be the real test of it, I guess. But then, of course, we have nice blurbs to go along with each one to keep the story going.
And I mean, you could almost do that with just the titles, but no, and you're not overdoing it. You have like a good succinct, like I think it's still very heavily visual audio.
The first album that we did, the Ancient Tree Saga, my song titles were definitely a lot more on the nose. It was like, we have a quest, traveling through, and being like, our scariest enemy yet. Oh no, did we just die? Oh, we're dead. And so
but I mean, it's also not. I don't think you're taking yourself too seriously with that stuff too. So.
And that one was definitely a lot more light and fun and like retro kind of vibes. Whereas Relics definitely has a lot more dark mystery to it.
No, and so like with the texture and all that, you sort of have like a mixture of, you have strings, there's a solo piece in there too, but like you for the first like half of it, you're kind of leaning on this like cello, electronic drums, acoustic drum, busy acoustic drum thing. Is that so? Like was that before the first? Like, what came first, the music or the visuals for the very beginning of it? You might have answered that already. Sorry.
Yeah, for the very beginning of it, it definitely started with some musical sketches.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I would just kind of, be writing some music for myself for fun, just trying to, get better and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then start to slowly adapt things and find like themes and melodies and whatnot.
Yeah.
That's when I kind of went to Stuart and was like, we've got to do it again. Got to go around. Stuart doesn't live in Austin anymore, so this whole last one has been fully remote, which is a thing that pre-pandemic I definitely would have been more hesitant towards, but it just kind of shows that we don't even I haven't seen him face to face since we started this project. Besides just like calls. And so it was kind of I just wanted to make sure I had something to show him first to be like, here's a track or two to kind of put us in the right direction. This is the vibe that I'm thinking for this one. For the actual music, it kind of, again, I started with like all MIDI instruments. And so there was like a lot of MIDI orchestral instruments and then a lot of electronic synths and drums and then acoustic drums kind of layered in. Or digital acoustic drums. It's the Roland V drums that I have that I'm able to plug directly in and manipulate. Those have been great for just being able to be like, all right, I've got 10 minutes. I'm going to do a quick pass at something. Just plug it in, go. Instead of legit acoustic where I have to like mic everything and takes forever.
Right.
And then by the time I'm done micing, it's like, all right, nap time.
Yeah. I've lost my, what was that phrase I was thinking of? I've just plugged in my, trying to optimize everything to where, like this mic I have plugged in all the time now. It's usually in my little isolation booth closet there, but that's my the constant thing of like trying to make it as easy as possible to just like get something out.
I did see a study once. I can't remember where it's from, so I might be horribly paraphrasing it, but it was a study of like people practicing guitar, and they had like if the guitar was in the case, people would just not practice because you'd have to play it. But if they just simply like took the guitar out of the case and put it on the front of it, they were like 100% more likely to actually sit down and play it. So just having that ease of setup, creating the templates. I definitely did create some nice musical templates for this one to make it not so like every time I load in, I have to load every single plug-in, and some of these things take forever because a lot of times I'll do it off like an external hard drive as well, because my laptop just can't handle the sheer size of some of these sound libraries. And so if I don't have it kind of set up, it takes like 10 or 15 minutes just to load everything, and then by that time I'm already onto something else.
Train of thought. It's a valuable thing. It's not like and the whole all of that texture stuff. It does sort of like it. I like how you described it. It's sort of a blend of like acoustic electronic, but you kind of have like the more I listen to it, I get like sort of like nature and roots growing, alien, leafy, kind of whatever adjectives you want from all that stuff, because it's like busy, and you also have this flowing like cello line stuff going through it.
I always tried to make sure. So I was really experimenting a lot with a lot of electronic sounds and a lot of like different modulations between sounds kind of blending together, and a lot of automation between different elements of those sounds. And so I was having like a great time with all these electronic-y things, but without any kind of melody on them. It definitely started to have a more busy, shifting, kind of evolving sound, but without like a central focus. And so
like
that's where a lot of those
almost more ambient, more than
more ambient and like just kind of more experimental sounding even.
Yeah.
And so the melodies I really tried to help ground things into that actual world through the melodies. And most of the time it was cello, and then the occasional time it would be like a piano or something like that. But cello was kind of the main character of this story.
Which I like that you focused it on that. And all this speaks to like your experience doing sound design, because like, and I have my next bullet point here, is the Lucio sound that you said. So you had a post recently about you had done a sound redesign for non-audio people. That's where you take a visual and remove the audio and put your own sounds in, just to sort of practice that kind of thing. Or, they use it as like tests when you're applying for jobs and stuff. But you had this, Lucio's a character in Overwatch that goes around on skates and heals people and has like a little speaker gun, which I've been playing Overwatch lately. So it's nice to, I played him for a couple minutes, and it's like, the sounds that they used for him are like really juicy, and like the mix is just really
he's a roller skating DJ.
And so there's this move where he like hits the ground or whatever, and you had done this redesign for it, and you were like, I used this as a source material in another world, right? If you wanted to talk about that.
Yeah. So the past couple of years, just as I've been getting more compositional practice and all that kind of stuff, and trying to get more music just existing in the world, I've also been focusing on sound design and game sound in general, and just trying to get my sound design chops to where I want them to be. And I've done quite a few game jams and all that kind of stuff. I know you're into some jamming as well. And those have been great, but don't lead to a lot of, demo reel potential and stuff like that.
Right,
so,
yeah. I more think of it as like a networking thing that also can sometimes give you some portfolio
it's definitely
stuff.
Been great for meeting people. Like, the majority of my friends in the game industry have been from game jams, because you are meeting people with the same attitude of like, I really love this thing, let's use our free time to do this thing,
collaborate,
which is the kind of people that you want to be surrounding yourself with. But the sound design, I've been doing a lot of redesign work and trying to just hone the skills that way. And one of those ones that I did was Lucio from Overwatch, and he did his the shockwavy kind of move, where he like jumps up and smashes the ground and has sound waves that come off. And so the sound I created was essentially just like a kind of sound with a lot of fun little bits to it. And when I had that sound soloed without any ambience or like Foley and stuff like that, it kind of sounded like just this really epic snare drum with like a wind up, like a kind of sound. And so I liked how it created like this tension of, it had like the reversey kind of, smack, and then the full bash sound. And so I kind of treated it almost like a snare drum sample that you might find in like a sample library, and then like layered it on top of my actual drum set snare during like the big epic kind of introduction of the track. And it made it have this really cool, like, dun 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 whoop, bah, dun 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 dun, bah.
Did you have to time, because like the part and then the second part, did you have to like move the first part around a little bit?
Only
to, like,
very gently. It almost worked out exactly the way that I wanted it to. Just because there was so much else also going on that the lead-in of the would kind of work. Starting pretty much anywhere. I just kind of sliced it a little tiny bit to make it so it ended would end on the beat, and then the bop would land on the beat. But other than that, I didn't really have to change too much. That's kind of one of the things that I started doing for this, was blending in my different sound design techniques that I'd be learning during my sound design training. And just like try to find a musical application, which I think helped the album, and I think it also helped in reverse on just like designing sounds in general from like a more musical standpoint.
Yeah.
And so there's lots of little sound fun bits going on.
That's a really good point about this is something I've sort of been thinking about is how like, and I tell students that I have of like if we're learning, you know, they're learning one particular skill like how to transcribe or how to be fast at transcription, and then like whatever, like, and all that, how when we learn music theory and all these things that seem separate, once you get to a higher level they all sort of congeal and you're going, oh, that makes sense that I learned that, you know, because now it's helping me do this thing, this new thing or whatever. And what I'm finding is that's kind of where like you bring in sound design, and that can kind of, that's the same thing. It's like, it's all like you can sound design very musically and you can write music very sound designy. You know,
yeah, it definitely is a nice Venn diagram of skills. Like same kind of things, like you'll use transients and build-ups and tension and release and, you know, attack, decay, all that kind of stuff, just trying to use it in different ways. Like, you know, musically, of course, we'll start to use that in... I've used it a lot in the drums, since I kind of hear drums already in that way of just like the snare I'll hear as that transient sound, and kind of, you know, since I've played drums my whole life, I can kind of separate the pieces of the kit pretty easily. And then when it came to like the more melodic and chordal stuff, that has definitely been a different path for me, because I you know, didn't study any kind of piano or anything like that growing up. It wasn't until like university theory classes and stuff like that where I started to see the cool things that you can do. And so I definitely approach it from a different perspective, I think, than other people, just kind of coming from the drums first, which I always thought was kind of it was definitely a thing that led to some imposter syndrome kind of vibes, where I was like, where I'm like, you know, I'm a drummer, they're going to see right through these chord progressions or something, or my voicings aren't going to be as hip as they could be. And then I had a kind of mentor guy on Facebook through it was like the Business Skills for Composers group, and was sharing music with him and kind of getting feedback. And he's like, first of all, you write like a drummer. And I was like, oh no. And he's like, but I mean that in like the best possible way that it could be.
Yeah.
He's like, because you're approaching this in a way that I probably wouldn't, but it's not in like a negative light. And so it kind of took me a while to think of that as like a positive part of my skill set, is that I think of things from a drummer's perspective.
It's you're getting to the same spot, you're just going the drum.
Yeah, it's just taking a different route. Yeah. Which
but
means,
then it
means a lot more trial.
Yeah. Strong sense of identity once you get there too. It's like, and that's very evident in this album. Like I started listening, and I really I have not heard anything quite like that before I turned it on, and it was like, whoa, okay, it's gonna be interesting. And then you go places with it too. It's like there was the one, I mean, because you're talking about like, oh, like you write like a drummer, and then I think it's like the last. I wonder if I could just play it for a second. I don't think this will actually play. This is just for me right now. This is great podcasting.
Well, Perseverance.
I was just making sure it was the right track. Yeah, add it in post. Perseverance. It's like the string stuff you're doing is like, there's no, you know, there's not any drums playing at all, and it's like this is this is advanced writing. So it's like, you know,
the whole kind of epic finale of it. So the basic story is, you know, you're this civilization that is starting off nice and thriving, but there's some corruption that happens from within. And about halfway through the album, the corruption overtakes the civilization and just wipes everything out. And then nature grows back in its wake and, you know, starts to redo the circle of life. And then corruption tries to come back through the nature, and then nature and eventually repels it. And that's the final track. So the final track starts off as kind of like a boss battle song, basically, for the first minute or so. Mm-hmm. And then the entire ending of it is when nature wins and all of the kind of like electronic experimental stuff goes away, and it's just the pure acoustic instruments. Mm-hmm. It was a cello quartet with 2 violins on top.
And were they people that you knew from school, or like?
No, I actually kind of got kind of lucky with this. It was a back before the album existed, and I was just trying to write the music. I was writing it using MIDI instruments, and I find the strings, I'm just not the best at programming them, and they always sound fairly fake. Even if I spend a lot of time programming it and it kind of sounds good, it still sounds fake and not like a real human.
Same.
The technology is impressive, and it's come a huge way since I was a kid, but it still doesn't feel quite human, at least not the way that I am doing it.
Right.
And so I had a couple of pieces that I wanted to experiment with fleshing out, but I didn't really know any cello players in my vicinity, and so I went on to Fiverr, the website where you can just hire people for anything, and I hired a cello player for a beyond reasonable rate, which the quality can kind of range on that kind of thing. But he sent me back some cello stems that were actually full of life and emotion, and it was recorded really well, and so I started hiring him more, and just kept going more and more until eventually it was this relationship outside of Fiverr. His name is Martin Kutner. And he is a really awesome cello player. He's in Croatia.
I was going to ask, yeah.
And so there's, a big, again, pre-pandemic seems like a thing that wouldn't have been able to really happen. But for the majority of the album, he's the one that is doing the melody through it. And so it started with that nice, kind of budget Fiverr experience, or what I was thinking I was getting, and then kind of blossomed into a nice, friendship and musical collaboration. And yeah, he's kind of all over that whole album.
And then the other string player, did he also play the other string instruments, or?
There was a couple of violin players. I think another one was from Fiverr as well, that I used just on that one track, just to kind of add some extra texture. Again, it started all MIDI, and then I slowly replaced things. And charted it out, so I had music to actually send them. And so I definitely pushed myself to try to create a lot of moments on the album where it was multiple minutes of just no drums or no percussion, because I don't want to be just the drum guy, but I can do all that stuff, and it's a lot of fun, and that tends to bleed into most things that I do. But I wanted to create these different things. Another one was the track Siren, which is just a solo piano track. Mm-hmm. That was my friend Nacho Azor from I met him at the University of North Texas. He's from Barcelona.
Nice.
That's how you
get that soft TH sound.
That he's an amazing piano player, and again really brought my MIDI thing to life. Which is definitely something that I think is really important, is just utilize people around you to help bring life into your music. Because it definitely goes a long way. Even if it's mostly MIDI and you just have one live player on top, it really just brings everything to life. So I definitely recommend doing that anytime you can.
That's one thing I learned from one of my mentors at UNLV, Dave Loeb. He did a lot of PB. He at the time that I was there, he was scoring a PBS documentary, and they were doing. I think he was talking about how he was doing like a MIDI patch of like vocal music, and they just like he had his wife sing the top line of it, and that just sort of like with some nice mixing and stuff, that sort of it makes a huge difference. Just that one little element of realism.
Yeah,
and it's cool to think because like I imagine there's people like I'm lucky enough to live in a city where there's lots of really high caliber musicians that I know and I can call and record, which I'm just like, why am I not doing more of that? But it's also nice to hear that you can be in the middle of nowhere. Not that you're in the middle of nowhere, but like, but like you can be in the middle of nowhere if you have access to Fiverr. You can find someone in Croatia that can provide live. So it's just like, and it's cool that we're in an age of like possibilities. With
it was. I mean, very inexpensive, and it was like pretty much overnight. Had a version.
Yeah,
I think he had like unlimited revisions was kind of one of his things.
Yeah,
I think he was really just trying to build up his Fiverr presence.
Yeah,
and so I got in at like the right time where he was like his prices were really low, so that he could get a lot of good reviews and gigs under his belt.
Right.
But yeah, there's that kind of stuff is something that's just really easy, I guess, for this whole project. None of the people that performed on it live anywhere near me. Even the artist, Stuart, doesn't live, in Texas anymore.
Right.
And so it's definitely a beautiful pandemic love child that could exist in this day and age.
Yeah.
Where the majority of it was composed when I was like locked in,
Yeah.
I was teaching virtually for the whole year and a bit, and just kind of in between lessons would kind of work on all the music. And so it's one of those things where, you don't even necessarily need to have that full network of people. It definitely helps to have people that you can approach. And that was definitely the thing that I got the most from for school and university. Was just the network of people that it introduced me to, because now I've got friends in like every facet of the music industry. That I could call upon to be like, hey, remember me? Let's do this thing. Like for example, I could be like, hey, you've got a podcast now. Let's
there you go. Exactly. Well, and I wasn't going to. I'm probably not going to have another episode for a little bit. That's what I said after my last one, and then I had like a little in between, like talk to myself in a closet episode, basically explaining like I'm just gonna take a little hiatus because I have this, and I list all the things, mostly so I could just like throw that out into the world so that the world can then know that if I don't have this done, then I haven't been doing my work. So I'm just trying to like light a fire under myself. Yeah. But then I was like seeing all this, and I'm like, well, if I'm gonna interview Jared, you were on my list anyway, I was like, well, I should do it when he has an album out. So not that you're gonna get a huge signal boost from this. Sorry, I don't know how many people listen to this, but
I'm just happy to chat with you. It's been so
man. Well, and I want to just sort of, I'm trying to create like just connection. I'm trying to connect more with people. Like a good friend of ours from cruise ships died a couple weeks ago, and we had a memorial, another surreal experience, a memorial Zoom meeting for him. And we just sort of all sat around and just told stories about him and stuff, and it was just really nice. I had a nice couple phone conversations afterwards of just people I haven't talked to in years that I wouldn't have talked to in any other like era or circumstance. Anyway, it's just like it's nice to really
if this year or the 2 years I guess now has taught us anything, it's that connecting is closer to our fingertips than ever.
And maintaining connections. It's like
maintaining connections. Music making is easier than it's ever been. Just through the technology that exists, but also the crazy amount of like free resources and online resources.
Well, and reaching your audience directly too. Is
just putting it all out yourself.
Yeah.
Everything is extremely accessible now, which is great.
Yeah, it's democratized. Like knowledge is sort of democratized a little bit. It's so like, and that's kind of that's something that I'm discovering, and that was part of the conversation I was having last night. Is that this guy's doing his doctorate? My guest from episode 2, Brian Canonigo, he's finishing up his doctorate. He's doing a dissertation on creating a curriculum, like a modern curriculum, which that's not the newest idea of like, hey, things are outdated, let's fix them, but there is certain things that I'm just like, it seems obvious, but they're still not in that many programs, like learning how to like edit a video, learning what a reel, like what an actual reel should look like and sound like, and what a website should look like, and like that website is just so basic of a thing that I never learned anything about except through just trial and error and doing it myself. But and I mean, you don't necessarily need school to tell you those things, but it is kind of,
they don't usually. You don't get much of that. Yeah, that's definitely been one of the bigger challenges. I definitely came out of school with like a lot of performance chops and writing chops and all that kind of stuff. But my business skills and that side of things were just non-existent, because they don't really treat you as like a business person in school. You're kind of a student studying the craft and trying to get better, which is totally understandable. But the business side, when I came out of it, was non-existent. Kind of needed to try to shift my thinking away from like just creating things and then having it out there and being like, all right, I've done my part.
Yeah.
Just trying to get even just some basic business sense around treating myself as like a business.
Yeah, and trying to demystify like what should I be working on? What should I be focusing on and prioritizing? I think that it is like, it depends on what like a school is like saying that what's the purpose of it? What is our goal here? Is it like we're focusing on making you a good musician? Okay, cool. So then, like, how do I license music? How do I write music for stock libraries, or the Unity store, or what does non-linear music sound like? What is this or that? And there's all these skills that it's not to say that there's just like there's deep stuff that you can get into that you can't cover everything, but it is kind of, it just seems like, and I know why, because like by the time you implement like changing a program, it's like the technology and the market has changed already, and we're speeding up with how fast things are changing. Like VR is just, and spatial audio and stuff is just like, anyway, tangent, right? Sometimes I don't go anywhere.
No, I mean, it's true. They definitely have that focus on like just making you the best musician that you could be. From like a performance side. Again, I went into a performance degree, so I kind of, that's on me. But they had, definitely more like music technology, and we had a couple of music businessy courses and stuff like that. But just as like a, person growing up as a musician, you kind of see the music performance route as like the main one that's, not pushed on you, but that's like, that's the one that's in the center. One. Yeah, you're like, I could be the performer.
You want to be on stage. You want to,
And in the music performance side of things, they definitely don't focus on things like the business skills or any kind of music technology or recording or anything like that. Like you go into recording sessions as a performer, but never really the technology behind it, or like microphones, all that kind of stuff. So all of that has definitely been, the education outside of school, which luckily there's just so many resources out there to kind of guide through that.
That's the thing. Yeah. It's like you can, if you I guess I go back and forth because like I can choose what book I'm reading. Like I'm reading an audio implementation book now that's like, audio coding and stuff. But I guess the thing that I think could specifically improve with education is like knowing what you should be learning. I guess like just having a better outline of like the actual end product of like what kind of jobs are these people doing, which is just like go and research yourself. But I go back and forth. But
it's a tricky one because there are so many branching paths. That I think a lot of people just don't know that they exist, or like the tangents that they can go on. Musically, or like what those skills can kind of branch off into. And so if anything, that would be the thing that I would try to improve upon, is just showing what is out there, and then like the different paths and skills you would need along the way. Definitely more business sense would have been helpful, of course, but because that's definitely been the biggest learning curve outside of like formal education.
Yeah,
it's just like, all right, now how do I music in the
how
world?
do I music exactly? And it's like because the days of landing Broadway's still there, but I mean like landing like those shows on the Las Vegas Strip on Broadway and cruise ship positions, like they're all there, but it's like there is a lot of limitation to how many of those positions are available. So it's like just
and the past couple of years have definitely just shown too, just like how scary that is and how that kind of thing can just stop.
Exactly.
Like I definitely have plenty of friends that are just
House
full-time
of Cards,
performers,
man.
and as soon as the pandemic happened, their income just went straight to zero, which
is
definitely not something that I want to get myself into.
Exactly.
So I do teach quite a bit. That's kind of my full-time job right now, is teaching drums and composing. And that luckily was able to continue during the pandemic. But it's definitely one of those scary things to be like, all right, and now all the gigs are canceled.
Yeah.
We have no return in sight.
Yeah.
At least back then it seemed like that.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely diversifying a bit.
Yeah, man. And I mean, like I started this podcast not really in the depths. We were sort of on the upswing out of the pandemic when I started this, which was like, end of last year. So we were getting out of it, but it is just like I can see a difference. Things are opening back up here.
Nature is healing a little bit.
Yeah. Hey, there you go. Master storyteller right here. Well, honestly, like I think that we could probably call it there. I'm very happy with that conversation. I think a succinct, good conversation. I'm not gonna have to edit this at all, really. So thank you for that. Probably edit my own ums and ahs out, but maybe the cat interrupting.
Add a few more to me.
I'll sound design your voice. Mm-hmm. See, edit that out. Cool, man. So, and I just want to make sure I'm sending people to the right thing. You're obviously jaredfarneymusic.com.
Yeah.
If you want to sign up for drum lessons, you do like remote drum lessons with people too. Yeah. Probably in person if they're in your city.
Yeah, I do in person in Austin, and then can do remote from anywhere.
Yeah.
And all my contact info is on my website. Mm-hmm. I do have like a Learn From Me tab on the website where you can contact me if you want to do any drumming.
And then obviously his projects. Is there a preferred method of listening to your music that you have?
They're on all the heavy hitters,
all the streamings,
the Spotifys and the Bandcamps.
Yep.
And even SoundCloud and iTunes, Apple Music, all the good ones. Spotify is probably the one I track the most, but they're everywhere.
Yeah. And then the name of your your wife's project with the artists. I don't know if that's something
that is
I could
that is
include it
the
in
Monster
notes.
Project.
The Monster Project.
Yeah. So
Which
that
is
one-
very cool. I think I saw it on Instagram through like one of those like curation accounts, like Art Never Sleeps or something, maybe something like that. But yeah, they take like a children's drawing and they make like a real like 3D rendering of that.
Yeah, or like all different kinds of art styles.
Or
like,
different, not necessarily
3D, or it could be like just any kind of awesome art style. But all done by super awesome professional artists from all over the world. Yeah, it's a super fun project. Definitely check it out.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jared. Go check him out. His new album is Relics. It's fantastic. That's it.
Hooray!
Yeah.
And that was episode 7. Thank you for listening. Make sure you go and check out Jared's album Relics, as well as his previous collaboration with Stuart Wade, The Ancient Trees Saga. Both can be found on jaredfarneymusic.com. Also, if you want to see more of Stuart Wade's portfolio, check out diligence.studio.com or click on the links in the show notes. Thanks for listening, and I will see you in episode 8, whenever that will be. All right, today's transition is to digitize myself like Tron and upload myself to episode 8. So here we go. Oh, I don't know if this feels good or bad, but here I go to episode 8. Oh!